young adults have for when they graduate high school gives them something to look forward to while they're working towards a diploma. The thought of infinite possibilities in front of us gives us the feeling that we have an exciting feeling for adventure that we can make for ourselves. This, however, is no longer the case. Everybody's taking their time. They're waiting to take the first steps to try and do something with their lives, because it seems even the most qualified applicants are falling short. Their opportunities just seem so remote to them. And the scariest part of this is now the high school diploma that used to be so coveted has now become obsolete. The American public school system has tainted the steno pool of today's children, and have done so with the incorporation of the No Child Left Behind Act. We must get rid of it. And I'm going to ask you to consider the reform of it. I'll explain what it is and why Congress felt the need to initiate it, the things we've had to endure, and what we can do about it. Of course, we all know that in the beginning it had to be voted on. So for some reason, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Stated in the No Child Left Behind Act, Title I, the NCLB, otherwise known as the No Child Left Behind Act, is defined as improving the academic achievement of the disadvantaged. It forces the schools to become accountable for the education of every child that attends public school. Equipped with a test to analyze the performance of the kids, it's a way for the teachers to know what they need to focus on in their curriculum. It allows the individual school to know how they're standing in their current educational system. Every school is expected to make incremental improvements every few years. And if not, the responsibility lies within the community, starting with the schools, the teachers, and the parents, to ensure the welfare of each child's education. If the school's unable to meet the standard improvements, they'll be put under authority from somebody of the district to aid in the school improvements in order to elevate the students' academic performance. This act should have secured the best quality education for children, regardless of their background, ethnicity, and their social class. And anything in the promotion of advancement for children's education is always considered a virtuous act. And although this statement is true, the initial intent for the NCLB is for the advancement of the nation's competitiveness internationally. It was meant as a clause in the American Competes Act. The purpose of it was for us to maintain control in worldly affairs. Now that the United States has gotten itself into a massive debt with other countries, we have to initiate the change. Congress probably reasoned that in order to remain powerful, we should invest in technological advancements or building things for international trade. Under the American Competes Act, Title VI, it stated that it's made to establish an expert panel to provide information on promising practices for strengthening teaching and learning in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics at the elementary and secondary school levels. The intent was to raise the education standard for performance to become a nation that can compete internationally with innovation. But how could they anticipate whether the kids would actually get the help that they actually needed? And would they be able to compete and raise themselves up to the standards that are set to them? A couple of years after the NCLB was incorporated into the school system, much of the public agreed that it did some good because it was reaching out to the public that needed it the most, the underprivileged, the kids that are in urban areas with not so much. And these were children that had nothing expected of them, so nothing was given to them. So in order for them to reach their potential and to add something to their community, they felt this act would help. And there are some who did have that potential, but were not able to see it because of their surroundings. My cousin Genevieve is one of them. She lived in South Los Angeles, and for her whole life she had to live on welfare. Her parents barely made enough money for their family to survive. And with the constant dangers of gangs around her, it was very difficult for much of her friends to concentrate, let alone herself. However, she was an exceptional student. She used the aid that she received from school and that was given by the NCLB Act, and she was able to utilize it to her best performance level. And there she was able to graduate with honors from her high school. And because of her outstanding performance, she was granted a scholarship to Cal State San Diego. And there she was able to pursue a study in child psychology and development. Now, although this is a Cinderella story of one individual who was able to accomplish such great things, there are many more who aren't making the necessary improvements for their school districts. When the schools can't meet their expected bottom line, it costs the district and the school's revenues, resources, and their teachers every few years. It's caused the schools to become understaffed, and with the standards for student success so high, there's a constant threat of being shut down. The schools get desperate and they turn to cheating. Instead of teaching the necessary curriculum so that they can be prepared for their future, for college or for career, they instead turn to teaching the tests. And that's why a lot of students go to school unprepared, and they're forced to take remedial classes and plus that they should have been able to get in high school. And many schools have gone so far as about lying about their actual achievement with a trick called gaming the system, which excludes the underachieving students from taking the necessary tests, and by labeling them most likely to struggle on the benchmark, thereby neglecting the students who do need the most help. With the way things are going, it would have been better never to have introduced this act, with the schools tricking the district by only administering the tests to students who are certain to excel within them. We don't have an accurate account of the achievement levels of all the students. Because of the NCLB, not only do kids suffer, but many jobs do, and as well as schools. However, improvements have begun. President Barack Obama has authorized the uses of No Child Left Behind waivers, and they allow flexibility within the NCLB law so schools may find a medium of teaching that helps the students and the teachers, and that will best suit their needs. Now, in order to receive these waivers, they have to have a plan to bring their education status to college-ready standards. And these waivers have already been received by Alaska, California core districts, DC, Florida, and Georgia, just to name a few. But I don't feel it's enough to give someone a permit to break the law. Laws are made to keep safe the citizens that are governing them and to help them. It doesn't make sense to keep a law that doesn't work and to give people a ticket to ignore it. The Obama administration is trying to enact another law to take place of this, called the Blueprint for Reform of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which does address the NCLB issues while still focusing on student achievement. This is our light at the end of the tunnel. This is our light at the end of a very dark tunnel, I believe. We grew up in this era of No Child Left Behind, and now we are labeled Generation Wait. We're sent out with little preparation to deal with competition in college or for a career. All my friends still live with their parents, and most of them have already graduated college. They were considered very likely to succeed in life, but they all seem to be wasting away in dead-end jobs. And to be honest with you, when I look at them and the way that they've turned out, it scares me. Because I don't know what's going to happen to me after I finish school. I'm just hoping to finish school the very best I can and make a comfortable living doing something that I'm good at. We had no say in what was going to be done to us with the No Child Left Behind Act. We already have enough laws that don't work. Must we keep this one as well? We need to get rid of this act and replace it with a blueprint for reform. The way to do it is to get involved with our communities and to get informed. It's time to fix the mess that the NCLB has made, and because ignoring it is not the answer.
I guess you don't have an obligation. I just hang on a second. We have one more speaker, I think.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, that's all I've got here. Unless somebody else is ready. So. I'm sorry. Daniel, tell us what you thought.
You seemed really nervous. You stayed in the back. Your voice was shaking, but then I understand that. I know that you got criticized for the flow last time, and then I know that you worked on, but it was still really slow how you talk, and that kind of threw me off as I'm trying to understand your speech. And I thought the introduction was really good, but when you have crazy introduction like that with using all these like fancy words and stuff, it's kind of hard to grasp the thesis. And if thesis is like not clear enough, your body gets all kind of messed up as an understanding. So I thought that could have been more clear in a sense. But however, I thought the speech was really good in a sense. It was really emotional, just how project your voice. And I thought a lot of examples are really emotional and connect to personally. So that was good, and it just sounded really intellectual. And so those things, I liked it. But yes, introduction, conclusion may have been a lot more clear.
Yeah, I think the opening is just really abstract, and you're having some trouble with it, delivering it and getting confident. So I think you just need to be a little bit more specific. You could give us that criticism that you have there at the end. 60% of college graduates aren't able to get a job that they want. I look at my future and I'm particularly worried about it, and I'm pointing back to what could have potentially contributed to this problem. I think it's the No Child Left Behind law, that sort of thing. It's put me in this situation. Okay, so then I've got a clear idea of where I'm going. The grandiose way that you were kind of getting into it, it didn't make any sense. When the topic finally came up, I'm almost a minute and a half into the speech. When I finally got the words "No Child Left Behind," I'm going, okay, well, I think I know where this is probably going to go, but I didn't know it because of the first 90 seconds. So I think you need to kind of be a little bit more focused there. Once you got to that point, there was a good structure that you signposted for us. I thought that was relatively easy to follow. You do need to give us some sources for the material that you're presenting. I thought that it was a little bit strange how we got from the history of the act, which suggests that it was put into place to make sure all the stuff that you described says we needed this kind of thing. And then you give us an example of your niece who managed to succeed in this kind of situation. I'm going, okay, so what's the problem here? And then I got a lot of vague stuff about, they're teaching to the test and that causes students to fail. Why? Why does that cause the students to fail? I have no idea. There's not an explanation about what's going on there. Because they don't learn basic principles, they just learn how to give answers, or because they learn how to take tests, but they don't learn how to apply these kinds of things. Can you give me some research that shows that that's the case? Were the kids better before the No Child Left Behind came along, or were they worse, or is it pretty much the same? Has there been no difference? What kind of data do we have on these sorts of things? You got sidetracked on this economic argument about, with the STEM issues, about how it's really about competitiveness and so on and so forth. And I'm going, okay, I see that there's a connection here, but how does it fit into your speech? It makes it sound like Congress is saying, oh, we are looking for being competitive. We don't give a shit about the kids. Sorry about the language. We don't give a darn about the kids. We only care about being competitive in the world. Well, the only way you get competitive in the world is if the kids are able to do these kinds of things. Why is the law preventing the kids from being able to do those sorts of things? And I'm still a little vague on that. I know that the act is widely criticized. I've been listening to speeches criticizing it since the day after it was passed, and they all come down to basically the same kinds of things. A lot of teachers grousing about being held accountable for their students' performance, and that forces them to do the kinds of things like you're talking about, teach to the test. The argument that talks about how the kids get sidetracked into these other things and so they're not assessed. How many kids get into that position and then get left behind as a consequence? If the purpose is to keep them from being left behind, is this a loophole in this, or is it just a loophole in the testing thing? The big issue here, of course, is that the No Child Left Behind is all about federal money to education, and I think that the problem is probably about what the role relationship should be between our goals as a country and what the federal government should be doing versus individual places and those sorts of things. I think there's probably a good argument to be made that says, the schools at the local level should be the ones who best decide what's going on, and we should stop trying to nationalize the schools, have school objectives and all those kinds of things, but let the schools figure it out for themselves how to do that. I think maybe that's the argument that you ought to be making. I have no idea what this new act is talking about, that is the one that has been proposed, that's got an even longer name, and I'm not sure what its acronym would be. So how is it supposed to fix those problems? You don't have time to talk about all those issues, so that gets to be a little bit problematic. I think that Daniel pointed out a couple of things that you probably know too. There's some hesitation in your delivery, especially early on. There's uncertainty. As I pointed out, I think to one or two other people, you stand as far away from us as you possibly can. If you could get another 10 feet back, I think you would be. It's just, you move right up against the wall. You should be a little bit more assertive about, I'm sorry, maybe you weren't spanked enough. You should be more aggressive in speaking to the audience, come forward and step forward and make your point to us and try and connect to us a little bit more. All right. Thank you.